Hello, welcome to the Weekly Economic Snapshot. This week we'll discuss why economists believe it is so beneficial for central banks, like the Fed in the United States, to be politically independent. With their monetary policy tools, central banks can provide a short-run boost to demand by lowering short-term interest rates. This involves expanding the supply of money. However, over the longer run, faster growth in the money supply brings more inflation. And if consumers and businesses expect higher inflation, they will set prices and wages accordingly, and the inflation will become entrenched without any lasting gain to employment. That is, there's a temptation to do something that might be a lift in the short run, but undermine price stability in the long run. A political leader facing an election might be very willing to do this, as the negative consequences would come later after the election. A famous example of this occurred in the early 1970s when President Nixon pressured the chair of the Federal Reserve, Arthur Burns, to lower short-term interest rates ahead of the 1972 election. This later came to be seen as a major contributing factor to the high inflation the U.S. experienced during the 1970s. A central bank that is insulated from political pressure is less likely to take actions that undermine the long-term health of the economy for short-term gain. So, even though central banks should ultimately be accountable to citizens, it is considered best practice for elected officials to keep their distance from day-to-day decision-making about monetary policy. An academic paper published in the early 1990s showed that countries with more independent central banks experienced lower inflation without any harm to other measures of macroeconomic performance. The importance of central bank independence is now well understood by participants in financial markets. The most important interest rates in our lives are long-term rates, like mortgage rates, and these are set in markets. If bond investors lost confidence in the independence of a central bank, they would demand higher interest rates to compensate for the additional inflation risk. In the U.S., if the independence of the Fed was seen to be compromised, the yields on long-term Treasury bonds would rise, increasing the government's borrowing costs. Mortgage rates, which tend to track Treasury yields, would increase as well. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.